Welcome to another Heartshine Dharma Talk. I'm going to begin today's podcast with chanting Shoshinge. I'm not going to chant the entire Shoshinge, but only part of it. Just, for the aspect of saving you some time. But I am going to chant some of it. So just go ahead and get comfortable and just tune in, take some breaths. And we'll just begin. You just go ahead and listen to the chant and just let it come into your being. Kimyo Muryo Junior Namo Hukka Shigiko Ozo Basatsubi Daisei Jizai Obusho Token Shobutsu Jodoin Gokudo Ninten Shizen Mak Gonu Mujo Shushoga Shotsuge Daibuze Gokoshi Shishoju Jusei Myosho Monjippo Uha Muryo Muhengo Muge Mutai Koen no Shoujo Kanji Chieko Udan Nanji Mushoko Chonichi Gakko Shojin Zet Issai Gunjo Mukosho Hongan Myogo Shoujo Go Shishin Shingyo Ganin Joto Gakusho Dainehan Ishimetsudo Ganjoju Nyorai Sho Iko Shusei Yuisatsu Mida Hongan Kai Gojoku Akuji Gunjo Kai Oshin Yorai Jonyo Jitsugon No Hotu Ichinen Kiaishin Udan Bon no Tokunehan Bonjo Gyakuho Sayenyu Nyoshu Shinu Kaichimi Seshu Shinko Joshogo Ino Suiha Mumyo Tonnai Shinzo Shiunmu Jo Fujo Shin Jitsu Shin Jin Jin Ten Hinyo Nikka Hu Unmu Unmu Shige Myomuwa Gyakushin Kenkyo Daikyo Ki Soku Ocho Zetsu Go Akushu Issai Zen Maku Bombu ni Monshin Yorai Guzeigan Butsugon Kodai Shogesha Zenin Myohu Darike Mida Butsuhon Gannen Buts Jaken Kyoman Nakushusho Shingyo Juji Jininan Nanshu Shinan Mukashi Indo Saiten Shirange Juka Jichi Ikishi Koso Kendai Shoko Seishoi Myonyo Raiho Zeoki Shakanyo Rai Yoga Sen Ishu Gomyo Nantenchi Rujudai Shichutto Se Shitu no Zai Ha Umuken. Oh my God. Thank you for joining me for the Shoshinge chant. And I'm just going to give a little quick talk to follow up the chant today. I just want to say that this chant, if you don't already know, if you haven't been listening to my other podcasts before this, It is an ancient Buddhist Jodo Shinshu Pure Land chant that was written by a 12th century Buddhist monk by the name of Shinran Shonin, who was the founder of the Jodo Shinshu Buddhist sect in Japan. And this song or chant is very ancient. And I believe that the words themselves aren't really what the chant is about, because it's the energy, it's the vibration of what's coming through. And it's kind of like that saying. Have you ever heard the saying that, when you point at the moon, the dog looks at your finger, right? When you point at the moon, the dog looks at your finger. So it's the idea that words are just pointing towards something, right? We have language because it helps us communicate, and we've created an agreement around what words put together in sentences mean, right? That's language, if you think about that. And there's different languages all over the world. So one language is completely different than another, but a bunch of people got together and, however it happened, I don't know the actual way it happened, but people created a language developed, and each language has its own meaning. So I don't feel like the words themselves really are what's important, rather the vibration of the sound that's being transmitted from the energy of the voice. And that, you have to take a breath when you chant, right? You have to breathe in deeply. And if you have any experience, even singing, which chanting is not singing, but if you have an experience singing, you have to be able to breathe really well, and you have to use your diaphragm to project your vocals. And if you understand that, spiritually speaking, it's said that the soul or the spirit is carried on the breath, which is why, and a lot of spiritual practices, breathing is one of the practices that helps you to connect with yourself or to attain enlightenment, to get present in the moment. So many reasons why we do breathing practices. So I feel like it's a breathing practice. It's a way to tune your vibration, to tune your vibration. So it doesn't really matter actually whether you're listening to a chant or you're actually sounding a chant yourself. I feel like it doesn't matter, because either way, the vibration is present. And if you are intending to let that vibration come into your being, you don't have to actually chant it to get the benefit. So, there's a lot of spiritual practices out there. There's a lot of different kinds of chanting. And I've actually done a lot of different kinds of chanting, having been a yoga teacher, and having, a Buddhist background. And I just feel like that, it's really your intention, because I think you could just chant all day long. And if you don't have the right intention, if you're just doing it because you're trying to maybe earn merit, or, you're trying to prove to yourself, that you're spiritual or something, it's really not going to work. You can't really fool yourself. But if you're doing it because your intention is pure and you just are expressing truth, it's like an expression of truth, then I feel like you're going to get massive benefit from listening to or chanting yourself. So that's why I'm sharing this chant. And I feel like sharing this chant is important for me. And, I used to be actually afraid. I used to be afraid to share this chant. I don't know. I'm really just getting really brave lately, with all kinds of sharing, and maybe part of me didn't feel like people would understand it, or maybe I didn't want to offend people. You know how it is, like, I don't want to seem overly religious to others. And I don't know, it's just all this, like, that silly stuff that goes on in your head. But the truth is that, you know, this chant, and I've mentioned this before, really changed my life. Like, it came into my life at a time when I was open to it and I needed something. And the teachings say that this is ancient knowledge that's been passed through the ages, through the sages. You know, human beings have transmitted this knowledge over the ages through these different pathways of human beings, organizations, teachers, and organizations. And somehow this chant arrived in my lap about 20 years ago. And that's how long it's been in my life. But it's taken me really until now to be able to embrace it and just to feel comfortable sharing it with you. So yeah, it's just a little personal share. But what I actually wanted to just finish up the talk with was this, something just to ponder, is that there's this idea, I think, in a lot of spiritual circles, that forgiveness is something you should do, right? Like, you should forgive. I mean, and I know forgiveness is actually obviously a very important concept, because if we're walking around holding on to a lot of hate and resentment and anger towards others, it's only going to hurt ourselves, right? But I think that there's this sort of misconception that in order to release that, you have to forgive someone. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't explore this, okay? I'm just prefacing that. But I feel like it's difficult. It's more difficult than maybe some people realize it is, or if you feel like you're following a spiritual path and so forgiveness is something that's really important to you, I just invite you to consider that there actually might be an easier way to release anger and hate and resentment and all different levels of fear. And that's this concept, is that if you think about, here's the saying is, understanding replaces forgiveness in the mind of the master. So understanding replaces forgiveness in the mind of the master. My interpretation of that, and this is from my own personal experience, is that if someone harmed you, or more than one person, but however many, one or more people harmed you in some way in your life, no matter what the severity of it is, whether it's mental harm, emotional harm, physical harm, financial harm, that if they harmed you and you're hurting and you're working really hard to get over it, you are trying to work through it, it's painful, and you try to force yourself to forgive someone, you see, it's not going to work. It's not going to work, because what's happening is you're not letting yourself process the pain of the event or the series of events that caused you this harm. And you have to actually process the pain and the feelings that we aren't comfortable with. Typically, spiritual people aren't comfortable with anger because we've been told that anger is not spiritual, that anger is wrong and bad and shameful. So we don't let ourselves feel anger when it arises in us. But anger is just an energy, and what's underneath it is fear. So if something makes you angry, and really what it is you're just afraid of something, you're afraid of losing something, there's fear there, but anger comes up and you push it down. You don't let yourself process it. You don't let yourself express it, whether that's, in a healthy way or not. It's going to get trapped in your body. And this is a fact. This is a fact. And this is my profession. I work with clients. I've been working with clients for years, helping them process trauma using clinical EFT and energy psychology. And I know this for a fact is that if you suppress anger, it is going to come back to bite you. And so no matter how hard you're trying to forgive someone, if you don't process that anger, it's not going to work. You're just going to end up beating yourself up because you won't be able to forgive. You might feel like, okay, I forgive them. It might be intellectual, but your body remembers the anger. And then you're going to get frustrated with yourself for not being able to do it. So what I'm suggesting is to consider something is, instead of trying to forgive the person, just turn towards yourself and understand that, when a person has behavior that harms you, that means that they're not conscious. They're very unconscious. If they can't, first of all, if they have behavior that harms you and they can't take responsibility for it, or they won't take responsibility, they won't own it, they're a very unconscious person. Okay. And this is neither good nor bad. And I'm not saying that this excuses people's bad behavior. So I'm not saying that you should allow someone to abuse you. I'm saying that it's because they're unconscious. It's very simple. And then if you realize that their behavior is a result of them not being aware of themselves, like they don't know who they are, and they are operating from a place of intense shame, guilt, and fear because they haven't processed their own trauma from whatever that trauma is from their life. And now they've projected it onto you and they don't realize it. They're unconscious of it. And when you can get to a place of understanding about this, because you can realize that, you yourself have done this. All human beings do this. This is part of being human. And the difference between someone that, is committed to growing and is committed to, they're not perfect, but they're committed to personal growth, spiritual growth, being a better person, having better relationships, being a better, whatever it is in life, mom, dad, brother, sister, husband, wife, partner, friend, family member. They want to be better. And that requires self-awareness, right? So if you can understand how you yourself in your own life have sometimes been unaware or unconscious of your own behavior, and then you became aware of it, and then you were like, oh wow, you know what, that really did hurt that person, or that really was, that was not a healthy way to handle that, and then you adjust your behavior, right? So it's just a lack of awareness. And if you can start to actually forgive yourself for the things you've done to others, if you can actually just stay focused on your own process for a while, learning to forgive yourself because you're understanding yourself, right? If you can understand why you've done the things you've done in life that you regret, because everyone has done something they regret. Everyone has hurt someone else, made a mistake, made a mess of things, acted like a jerk. Everyone has done this. There's not one person on the planet. Nobody is perfect. So if you can turn towards your own experiences in life like that, and you can understand why it happened, and you can start to forgive yourself, then I believe that understanding replaces the need for forgiving another. Because what happens is, if you're practicing oneness, right? Unity, a oneness consciousness, you realize there's no separation between yourself and that person that hurt you. You realize it. And so when you forgive yourself and you understand why you've done things you regret, you can just automatically understand why this other person has behaved the way they have. And that's where it ends. I'm not saying that it means that you should make any changes in the way you interact with them. It doesn't mean you should, like I said, it doesn't mean you should let them abuse you or allow them to harm you again. Okay, you need to protect yourself. It's not spiritual to let people walk all over you and just be like a boundaryless creature roaming around the earth, right? That that state of being isn't for this plane. That we have to have boundaries with others. So protect yourself from emotionally unsafe people, but work on understanding like the root cause of the suffering in our own being that creates poor behavior. And then I believe that naturally there won't be a need for forgiveness of others. I just believe that. Now, I won't tell you that it happens overnight. And I think that it takes a lot of time. It's not linear. It's not like a straightforward path, but it does eventually happen if you continue to practice it over and over, and over time, it does happen. So I'd like for you to just ponder that. I invite you to ponder that. And if that applies to something in your own life right now, if you're struggling with the concept of forgiveness, if you're struggling with feeling angry and you want to let it go, just give yourself a break, and have some compassion for what you've been through, and start to release the responsibility for other people's, problems and behavior, and just trust that whatever it looks like from the outside, they're on a path of their own, and they have their own karma, so to speak. They have their own lessons they're learning in life, and we can't take their pain away from them. I know we want to take our loved ones' pain away, but already that the only person that can take away your pain is yourself. So start letting go of the need to take other people's pain away, and trust that they're on a journey, and that pain, whatever that is for them, their suffering is part of their lessons and their spiritual journey, and they can find their way. And you can find your way, and you're only responsible for yourself and your own journey. So I'll leave you with that thought, and thank you so much for joining me today. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I highly recommend that you do subscribe and get the notifications by hitting that little bell button. And if you would like to support my channel and all the work that goes into it, I have a Patreon account, and the link is below in the description, and you can become a Patreon member in my Patreon account. And I hope to see you at the next Heartshine Dharma Talk. Have a beautiful day. May you be at ease and know joy.